Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, Kentucky, Louisville to be specific. Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Engelman, and welcome to another episode of The Unhappy Hour here on the TNAM network, because the news always matters, because the old American media has failed us. This is going to be an episode of, well, I don't know. I want to call it Strictly Browns. I want to do a Strictly Cleveland Browns show. Rocking my old school Cleveland Browns shirt, and we're going to be back to rocking the old classic coverage. But no, we have two stories to cover today. Let's start with the Cleveland Browns. By the way, if you're in the group, hit the like button, hit the thumbs up or the hearts or whatever the hell it is. I don't know, Facebook, do your thing. But if you have comments, if you have questions, type them in. And I don't know, some days Facebook lets me see comments, some days it doesn't. Maybe this is a day I can. And if so, I'll bring you in and incorporate your points into the conversation. First off, I want to raise a glass. No, I am not sponsored by these folks yet, but this is Weller. This is Weller, the original wheated bourbon. This is Antique 107. And I'm going to pour a little bit. This is the Unhappy Hour. So belly up to the bar. Let's talk some sports, shall we? I'd like to raise my glass in a toast. This would be a toast to the Cleveland Browns and their front office. Hey, let's even say Jimmy and Dee Haslam. How about that? I raise a glass, and I want to say congratulations. Cheers. It's not every day you find a player that you want to keep on your team forever. Very few Browns players have received these second-year deals, or extensions, rather, since 1999 when the team came back. So kudos. You have arguably one of the best, if not the best, defensive end in the game today, who only has potential to reach. He only has good days ahead, and may his faults and mistakes remain in the past. May his growth remain in the future. And may his health remain paramount at all times. Cheers. Oh, man, that's so much flavor. So different if you get something delicious versus something meh. Myles Garrett said Thursday, I believe that's today, that he's ready to live up to the distinction of being the highest paid defender in NFL history. Quote, now I have to assert myself as top dog, he said. I feel like I'm confident and ready to do that. Time to prove it. On Wednesday, the Cleveland Browns star pass rusher signed a 5-year extension with the Browns containing $100 million in total guarantees, the most ever paid to a defensive player, league sources told ESPN, with $50 million guaranteed at signing. The team did not discuss financial terms, but sources told ESPN that the deal's worth $125 with a $25 million average salary, which is also a record for a defensive player. Quote, they had faith in me, and I've got to give the Browns a reason to have that faith. He's going to be with Cleveland through 2026. He's now surpassing Khalil Mack with his average $23 million. See, and it's interesting that we talk about sports the way that we are right now, because I guess when I was playing late 90s, mid to late 90s, when I was playing in high school, it was almost, the captain of your team was the middle linebacker. They were communicating with the defensive linemen. They were working with the secondary. They were the quarterback of the defense, is kind of how you thought of it. And the middle linebacker position is probably changed a little bit over the years. And if you were to think of two cornerstone positions with which you want to build a franchise, I think you would have to go with quarterback on the offense, because everything is ran through that quarterback. If your line stinks, you can throw it away quick and avoid turnovers. You can run it. There's different things you can do. Obviously, we all know why the quarterback is the number one position. But on the defensive side, it seems like that right defensive end, or, it doesn't matter what side, but in theory, if there's a right-handed quarterback, you're going to put your best tackle at the left tackle position facing your blind side. Movies have been made about this with Sandra Bullock, as you recall. So the defensive end position might be the most important position on defense. I don't know when that morphed. I don't know if it has fully morphed. So that would be my question of the day. If you got to pick one player who's the best at what they do, would you rather have a defensive end putting pressure on the opposing quarterback, which will then lead to interceptions by the linebackers and the defensive backs, or is a middle linebacker position, or something like what Denzel Ward, a cover corner, is a cover corner locking down the other best option, going to add that extra time that's going to let a more average defensive line get to the quarterback, put pressure on, and tackle the quarterback, get a sack, turn the ball over on downs, and give your offense another chance. That's my question of the day. If you could only pick one player on defense, one position, and you get the best person in the league, what position will have the most impact? I don't think it's even debatable on offense. If you want to debate me on offense and say that a lineman on offense is more important than the quarterback, or a running back, or a wide receiver or tight end is more important than the quarterback, fine. That would be an argument I did not anticipate having. Sorry, a conversation and a discussion. We discuss things here. We don't argue. We're friends. We're family. We don't argue. We just talk. We talk it out. But on defense, what is that position? Some would say it's defensive end. Some would say it's linebacker, like middle linebacker or Mike backer, and maybe a cover corner. I'm interested in your thoughts. Myles Garrett said, I was in the defensive player of the year conversation last year. I don't want to make it a conversation anymore. This next year, I want to ball out, win that award, take my team to the playoffs. I want to lead Cleveland to the promised land. In finishing 6-10 last year, the Browns proved to be one of the NFL's biggest disappointments while running the league's longest playoff drought to 18 years. It's been 18 years, guys and girls. 18 years. 18 years since the Cleveland Browns. Hang on. Do you remember the world 18 years ago? 2002? Good grief. It feels like an eternity. 18 years. That's an entire millennial's existence. From conception, not contraception, from lack of contraception to graduating high school. An entire millennial has never been alive during a Cleveland Browns playoff run. Oh, good grief. Now, I know we got close in 07. We had Kellen Winslow. We had, Derek Anderson and Jamal Lewis and Braylon Edwards. That team really should have been in the playoffs, but it was still too marginal of a team. It was a good team, but obviously it wasn't good enough. In the comments section, tell me what you're sipping on if you're having something just now. I don't know. I don't know where all the comments are. Some days they flood in and some days they don't. Anyway, in finishing 6-10 last year, the Browns proved to be one of the NFL's biggest disappointments. Playoff drought, 18 years. Of course, Myles was suspended for the final 6 games of the season after hitting Pittsburgh's Mason Rudolph, their quarterback, with his own helmet during a skirmish at the end of their November 14th game. Well, Mason started it, and Mason wouldn't let it go, and he kept going. And as Myles was getting pushed and Myles was backpedaling away from the situation, Mason Rudolph continued to charge into that situation, and he got bomped on the head. Bopped on the head. Not a good look, but it's also not exactly the worst thing you've ever seen. If Myles in a frothing rage continues to bowl over linemen to attack a backpedaling Mason Rudolph, totally different story. You're backpedaling, you're trying to get away from the situation, and if the aggressor at that point, the aggressor was clearly Mason Rudolph, if you're backpedaling, yeah, you reach out, you swing, you see a threat coming at you, and at that point you want it to stop. Anyway, it wasn't a good look, but time will tell. Is this a determining factor in who Myles Garrett is going to be? Is this an indication of the type of player we're going to have on the Cleveland Browns roster? Is this a low character player who's going to have an inability to control his emotions, and he's going to be a liability on the field and off? And go down the list. The Cleveland Browns had a decision to make, and they had to say, all right, was that a bad day and a bad moment, and we are all allowed to have bad days and bad moments? And the Cleveland Browns have clearly said human beings can have bad days and bad moments, and then deal with the ramifications of it. Jump through the hurdles, take your suspension, take it like a man, and move along with your life and come back focused. I think that's what the Cleveland Browns have decided to do. And time is going to tell if that's a smart move or not. I mean, but the Browns have just now set a benchmark. This is a new financial world now, thanks to the Cleveland Browns and to the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's the thing, the part of sports, yes, the Cleveland Browns happen to be on the side of the biggest contract for a defensive player in NFL history. That's a big deal. But so are the Chiefs for an offensive player. Once again, what are the two positions that are getting paid? Defensive end, quarterback. Now, the thing about the Cleveland Browns doing this, it's a little reminiscent, if you will, of the Cleveland Indians of yesteryear. In the 90s, when they went 1994 was when they were all coming up, and that awful strike ruined a season that could have led to a Tribe title. But the Tribe identified some players and locked them in, had some young talent and signed them to contracts. You paid them more up front so that you could have more control over their career for an extended period of time. So, there's obviously a risk. If you come out and have a dud of a season, maybe you don't get re-signed. Maybe you don't come back. Maybe no other team believes in you the same way that team does, and you're unemployed. Now you don't have you don't have an in with the league. So there's a risk. There's an injury risk. There's all sorts of reasons why a player might want to re-sign early. And face it, Myles did something really stupid here. I don't know if we're getting a bargain for Myles, but if we would have had to make this deal a year down the road, 2 years down the road, I mean, it would cost us more. In theory, provided that the continuing sports landscape continues on a trajectory that it has been. However, let's press pause for half a second here. We do not know what the future of NFL football is going to look like. So that's what makes it a really complicated situation sometimes for a general manager, for a front office. Who would have predicted you would go from 85,000 screaming fans that are paying for parking, paying for concessions, paying for beer, loge, season ticket. There's all sorts of fees and merchandise, all the hats and the shirts. Now maybe the merchandise won't take a hit. I guess, you're not going to have as many game day sales of magazines and programs and foam fingers and collectibles and helmet, things you get at the game and you take home with you. So maybe that's not going to be hit as dramatically, but when you don't have a gate, you saw with Philadelphia, the Eagles were saying, was it yesterday or 2 days ago, the story came out that the city of Philadelphia would not allow them to have fans in the stands. Now, I believe they walked that back a little bit yesterday, but, you're seeing something like 10,000 to 15,000 people being allowed at a game instead of 85, 90,000. That's a big difference. Where does some of this money come from that pays these exorbitant salaries? Hey, it's the ticket. It's the box office. It's those PSLs, those private seating licenses. So who knows? I don't know how COVID and coronavirus is going to impact contracts in the sporting world. Because if you don't have fans, I get it. The NFL's trying some new stuff. They're going to add extra advertising, so they're going to change the camera angles, so while you're watching, you'll see ads. You don't need to do that. It's you can overlay it on the TV. First down is always presented by Pepsi. Second down is always Papa John's Pizza. Third down is always Ford Motor Company. Whatever. None of these are sponsors yet. I don't know. I don't really see the massive upside to that. But anyway, so who knows? I guess if COVID changes things, maybe there will be a sliding scale and players will be asked or forced to take less. I don't know. We'll see how that collective bargaining situation gets resolved. And the Browns' J.C. Tretter, he's big into this. J.C. Tretter, The Cleveland Browns offensive lineman, I mean, he's head of the NFL players. What is it? The Players Union Association? I forget what his exact title is. He's like the head. He's the guy. By the way, number one, you want articulate, smart people who can lead something like that. You want them to be your offensive lineman. That's good. You know, there's this perception of the big, dumb offensive lineman, all right, we knew people that fit that mold maybe in high school. We knew that guy. There were probably many of those guys. But when you get through college, you have to have a certain next level ability most of the time to be able to get through it. Now, I guess if you're a good enough athlete, you could probably fake it till you make it. You could probably pass through a situation. You could probably succeed. You could probably get by. But by the time you're in the professional league, you know, talent is a dime a dozen. You're talking the best of the best of the best. You know, and if you have 5 linemen times 32 teams, you got 150, 160, call it 170 offensive linemen. Then you have their backups, call it 340. So, I mean, out of the entire nation, what is the difference between number 340 and 440? I don't know. I don't know how big of a difference it is. But when you have the size, you have the talent, you have the skills, it's going to be the mental ability to adapt, to improve, to learn that is going to separate a lot of people with physical talent, physical gifts, God-given athletic ability and skill. So it's not just size, it's not just talent, it's not just reflexes, it's not just knowledge of the game. It's all of it. It's all of that stuff. So you really, despite the big lumbering kind of thing that you think about when you think about offensive linemen sometimes, that used to be the running joke or gag. But, you know, the game has evolved since the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s, the 80s, the 90s, and today. Your hits from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and today. So anyway, J.C. Treader, he's head of the Players Union, and they're having issues. There's a lot of stuff that still is not resolved. The players don't really know how this is going to happen with the players that test positive. What percentage of the money will be guaranteed? What will happen if players get sick and have to forfeit the ability to play? Will they lose revenue? Because the team will have to bring somebody else in to take that position, right? Shockingly enough, there's a lot of unanswered questions right now, and that doesn't bode well. But these are just a couple of recent examples of things I'm mentioning as to why it makes sense for small level, mid-level market teams like the Cleveland Indians to lock in Kenny Lofton in the outfield, Albert Bell in left field, Manny Ramirez in right field, Jim Thome at first, Sandy Alomar, Charlie Nagy. Like, you want to get these guys into nice chunk contracts that are controllable for several years. You want to have some sort of financial stability with great talent. So overpay them up front. Maybe you just see a flash. Maybe you see some things, some intangibles, some moments of greatness, and maybe that's all you're ever going to get in a player's first couple of seasons in general. 95% of the time. Sometimes you can look at a Frankie Lindor or a LeBron James, and you'll know that they have it. But sometimes you're guessing. Now, obviously, the stuff coming out of the Cleveland minor league system in the 90s was ridiculous with Thome, Ramirez, Bell, Baerga, Lofton, Alomar. I mean, just an incredible amount. I know we made some trades to get some of these guys, but you get my point. They identified talent, locked them up, and then they let them grow and play together. And it feels like that's a little bit like what this Cleveland Browns team is doing right now. They're locking in their talent, and they're getting some cornerstone pieces that they want to grow together over the next several years. I mean, our team, there is a foundation here. There is something that could be dominant. Now, obviously, Patrick Mahomes, that's in the AFC. Those are the Chiefs. So How much time do the Browns have to compete? Well, some say it's up until you have to pay a quarterback. But let's face it, Baker hasn't proven himself yet. I bought in. I was all in on the first season. He took a step back last year. He took a step back last year for multiple reasons. I don't know that his training was up to snuff. I don't know that his head was in the game with all the commercials. You know, you're on the Jumbotron, shotgun and beers. Like, I get it. Come on, I would probably still be doing the same thing if I were in that position. I get it. But what happens is when you don't produce on the field, all those other things are magnified as, ooh, you know, there are some problems here. And if you can't fix these problems, we might have to consider moving on. And so that's kind of where Baker sits right now. You know, he was once considered the best quarterback prospect in the league, and now look at what Patrick Mahomes has proven. Look at what Lamar Jackson has proven, at least being able to get an MVP. That doesn't mean he was able to do anything with it because he got bounced out of the playoffs by the Titans. Which made me smile. But how long can the Chiefs be competitive when you have $500 million locked into one guy? How much other talent can you put around him? I don't know. You look at the Falcons, you look at the Lions, you know, Matt Stafford and Matt Ryan. Anybody named Matt, really? Now, I know there's 100 quarterbacks. I don't know why I went to those two first. But when you have that many eggs in a basket, it limits your ability to distribute to the rest of the players on your team. So you're just hoping you don't end up with massive holes because you've overspent. And obviously, that's a concern with paying a quarterback or paying a defensive end. Health comes into effect. You know, that's always a roll of the dice. How healthy is everybody going to be? Lord willing, our guys are going to be super healthy for their entire careers, and they'll spend their entire careers, their productive careers, with the Browns. Lord willing. But anyway, back to Garrett. Garrett referred to the incident as a small bump in the road for him and disputed the notion that he's a dirty player. Now I have seen a few plays. I have seen a few plays where Myles has, you know, maybe taken that extra step and a half. But you know what? We've been on the opposite side of that crap from the Pittsburgh Steelers for 20 years. You know, I don't want to see anything dirty, but I do want to see whooping other teams. I want to whoop other teams because we've been getting whooped for 20 years. So Myles said, the players I've played with and know, that's not who they see. That's a weird quote. They've never thought of me that way. I've never been that. Referring to being a dirty player, of course. Myles has been reinstated back in February. Yeah. Garrett alleged again in an interview with ESPN's Mina Kimes. Shortly after that, he reacted to Rudolph calling him a racial slur. Rudolph has vehemently denied the claim, and Steelers coach Mike Tomlin aggressively defended Rudolph in an interview with ESPN's First Take, saying he was hacked off by Garrett's accusation that Tomlin said neither team corroborated after the fight. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we've seen pictures, photographic evidence of microphones on the field that are there to record for all that NFL behind the scenes. In the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. You know, all that crap. Just where's the audio? You're recording every play, aren't you? Don't tell me you're not, because I know you are. It's just like if a cop gets involved in some altercation that says, oh, I turned my body camera off. You should never be allowed to turn your body camera off ever. Not a single time ever. That should not be a button that you possess. To protect the public from any abuse and to protect you from any false accusations. So I'm not buying that the NFL hasn't recorded and listened to what was said there in the pile. No, maybe it's a conspiracy theory. Maybe I'm out of line for assuming that the world's biggest, is the NFL the world's biggest or just America's biggest sports league? I mean, they're trying to crank out as much content as they can. Of course they're recording. Anyway. Oh, Garrett said Thursday he has yet to talk with Rudolph or Tomlin, but he would have no problem doing so. We play Pittsburgh on October 18. Oh, okay, of course. And then Garrett is weighing in on social unrest, saying that Colin Kaepernick deserves an apology from the league, the way it's treated him. Now, here's something that's close to home, being down here in Louisville. I don't like Kaepernick. I don't respect Kaepernick. I don't like the way he's approached all of this. I don't like how, you know what? I'm not going to rehash it. I'm not a fan. And if you go back, there's plenty of content with me talking about the self-aggrandizing stunts and folly of that guy. But this is a different one. Being here in Louisville, obviously there's that Breonna Taylor story that will not go away. It was a no-knock raid and the police shot and killed her. So, this is one of these unresolved issues where the people involved have not been charged with a crime. So it's still simmering. It's still going on. Well, Myles Garrett also said that he covered the funeral expenses of David McAtee, a Louisville chef who was shot and killed by police outside of his restaurant during a protest or riot. This is ESPN, so they're not going to say it. Garrett said he has also reached out to the family of David Dorn, a retired police captain who was shot and killed by a man looting at a pawn shop in St. Louis. Quote, I really wanted to reach out and help where I could, Garrett said. Those stories that reached me personally and touched me on a deeper level. All right. Well, I've been following the civil unrest as much as anyone else. If you want to join the other group where we do that a lot, it's called the Agree to Disagree Show. It's on. Just look for on Facebook, the Agree to Disagree Show. We cover more breaking news and current events and politics and stuff there. But I believe the story of David McAtee, I'll have to look it up, but the one I'm remembering was there was like a barbecue place, and there were people inside, there were people outside, and there was an empty lot nearby, and there were like 6 video cameras, and things get chaotic, and a shot's fired through the restaurant. All right, so being here in Louisville, I'm just going to have to double check. I don't want to talk out of turn, but when I watched that one, I was more confused. I think if we watched what happened in Minneapolis, we saw, and I've said this a lot, it's almost impossible to identify racism in the world. What? The easiest way to identify racism is if somebody says or types something using a racial slur. You call someone a honky, you drop an N-bomb, your white ass, your black ass, something that brings race in can give somebody an easier opportunity to point and say, you're a racist because you said a racist thing, which makes your intentions racist, which makes the entirety of your being racist, which makes you wrong, which makes them right. That's the end of the story, and you need to be canceled. I don't know, other than that, how you identify racism. I do feel as though there is racism and prejudice from every ethnic group, every religious group. Preferences and racism and ugliness and things that are peppered with bad experiences from our past. If you're a black guy that was attacked by a white guy in what you perceive to be a sort of a racist way, you can identify that and feel that as something bad, evil. So you felt it, you know it, and then maybe it's easier for you to extrapolate that out to the rest of the white people and say, this was my life, this was my experience. Therefore, this confirms what's happening everywhere. And there's a lot of people who have experienced something. Someone has said something ignorant, someone has done something ignorant, someone has threatened something violent, someone has done something violent. And the same goes for a white person that may have been attacked by a black person. You might then take that personal experience and extrapolate to the community in general, to that demographic group in general, because your personal lived experience had you attacked for what you perceived to be because the color of your skin was different, because you weren't on their team for some reason and you got whooped or worse. Plenty of things. There are plenty of awful stories to find in the world if you want to look around. We cover them in the Agree to Disagree group. We cover them with the New American Media. Awful things that seem to be racially motivated. From every color to every other color. I had this visual of the mugshot of... Anyway, an awful, awful, awful case that just came up again in a timeline. I mean, we don't know what was in the heart of that cop up in Minneapolis, but what the point that I'm getting at here, this is a long way of explaining. While it's probably close to impossible to determine a racial motivation, short of leaving a manifesto, a Klan helmet, a Black Panthers literature, or some racially motivated, and you've put out some sort of pattern and rhythm of harassment and with a targeted focus. I mean, something really premeditated. Short of that, it's hard to prove racism. But what is easy to identify, provided you have the camera footage always, every police officer needs to have their body cameras to protect the public and the police from false accusations. You can identify police abuse. Everybody that watched whatever happened in Minneapolis, I don't care what the scene was. I don't know if there was a tussle. I don't know why we're not getting the full video. Is there anything that could justify? You reach a point in the video and you see, okay, the subject is detained on the ground, hands behind their back. At that point, once you've patted their pockets down and made sure that there's no syringes or weapons or things that can harm them or you, there is no need to continue to exert force onto somebody. We don't pay executioners to roam our streets. There's a judicial system. It's why you don't fight with the cops. It's why you don't attack the cops. It's why you don't go have your day in court. For as innocuous as the Eric Garner thing was, he just decided he wasn't going to get arrested and deal with that legally. He was going to make it physical. He was not going to allow them to arrest him. And they had to bring down a very large human being. It was a bad situation. We can identify police abuse. So while I watched that in Minneapolis, back to Myles Garrett here, covering the funeral expenses of David McAtee, the Louisville chef, shot and killed by police outside his restaurant. It was a bit of a chaotic scene. What I saw was a black and white chaotic scene. It looked like somebody from the inside might have had a weapon, might have fired. There might have been something outside that could have appeared to be and confused the police at the moment. It was all utter chaos. It was all utter chaos, which is why I really don't advise you get involved in that close of a level. But I'm going to look into this story because I will tell you this. I'll tell you this much right off the bat. You know, and Candace Owens is taking a lot of grief about, I believe she said something along the lines of David Dorn and how up in Minneapolis, that George Floyd being honored is just how depressing and wrong it is. In something along the lines that man up there had been abusing the people in his neighborhood for years, multiple arrests, like real prison terms, like armed robberies, sticking guns into pregnant people's bellies while getting pistol whipped by one of the other thieves that broke into a home invasion, like awful predatory stuff. Whereas the after effect, society getting so upset by watching what happened in Minneapolis, which we all agreed was egregious and the cops should be facing murder charges. Those are all happening. But the excuse then made to loot and plunder and destroy and burn down your buildings and commit acts of violence. The David Dorn story hit me. Myles Garrett says, I really wanted to reach out and help where I could. Those stories that reached me personally and touched me on a deeper level. I vividly remember I was washing dishes in the kitchen. We're in COVID. Now things are burning and just everything's... And I got my earbuds in and I didn't even watch the video. And I believe it was blurred out anyway. Maybe it wasn't. I forget what show I was even listening to. But they played the video of a young man showing up to where David Dorn had been shot and died, I believe, in his arms. And he's saying, "Come on, OG, come on, OG. Oh, come on. You guys did this over a TV? Over a TV, bro? Over a TV, bro. Come on, OG. Come on, OG." And it was just this pained, you could hear it in the dude's voice. How angry he was that somebody would actually be willing to shoot and kill somebody to steal a TV, because now nationwide it looks like there's a chance to just riot and loot and pillage and plunder. Nothing to do with justice, nothing to do with racial equality and accountability and policing, none of that. To steal a TV, over a TV, bro. And that guy that was killed, many people would say his life was way more important than George Floyd's, in the respect that David Dorn was a retired police captain who had served his community. He was retired. This is an OG. This is an older gentleman. I don't remember his exact age. 50s, 60s, 70s. You know, an older gentleman. Your grandpa, your dad, your uncle. You know, like, that guy had to have his life snuffed out from the ramifications of the riots. I can understand peacefully marching and saying this is not right, but busting out windows and busting up people and shooting and killing and robbing and plundering, it's garbage. Just trash. Trash. And I have so much more respect now reading through this, and I'm going to look up the David McAtee. Like I said, if it's what I believe, the Louisville chef, I saw footage that was a little grainy, a little confusing, and it was just hard. It seemed like it was an area in chaos, and I don't really fully understand what happened. Minneapolis, what we saw was wrong. Once the subject was cuffed, pressure had to be taken off of the neck. Not necessary. David Dorn, and thank God they did arrest the guy that killed David Dorn down in St. Louis, and he'll be facing murder charges as he should. And that's a guy I don't think that should get out. I mean, if you're going to prey on your community like that, I mean, you're the most dangerous kind of danger. It's reckless. It's opportunist. It's don't give a F. Anyhow. Myles Garrett reaching out to the family of David Dorn. Now, it says he reached out to the family of David Dorn. I don't know that he said he wanted to help, but he said he reached out, and I want to look this up. That's a good move by Garrett. You know, like, on one hand, I don't think the NFL owes Colin Kaepernick an apology. I think Kaepernick acted like a punk, and he thought he was a $40 million a year quarterback. He had diminishing skills. Look, Browns fans know the Bernie Kosar phrase. You know, Kaepernick was benched for Blaine Gabbert twice. Hardly Joe Montana or Steve Young. Hardly. Hardly Aaron Rodgers. Hardly the heir apparent. This is hardly, Tom Brady coming in for, was it Drew Bledsoe? You know, so I think he swings and misses with Kaepernick. I'm going to check on David McAtee, but I believe that's what it is. And hey, if the best we can come up with is that was a tragic accident and an awful circumstance brought on by the chaos of a riot, bravo for Myles Garrett for reaching out. That's something you can do that's good. Either way, that family's hurting. I believe it was posited that maybe somebody from in there shot at the cops first. But once again, I'm going to reserve judgment on that because I got to look that one up. But David Dorn, if you haven't heard that audio, that was the most tragic piece of audio that I've heard since Kelly Thomas was beaten and killed by the Fullerton, California police all those years ago. It's just heartbreaking. You know, Minneapolis was kind of enraging because it looked like bad acting. It didn't make sense with people. Why would you continue to do that? It didn't seem real. It didn't seem like the way a human being would act if they knew they were being recorded and their life was no longer in danger, and you had 3 other people around. None of it made sense, so it's enraging. And then David Dorn, it just didn't have to happen. The answer to abuses is not to abuse. That doesn't fix the world. So Myles Garrett reaching out to David Dorn makes my soul happy. God, just that guy. Come on, OG. Come on, OG. Over a TV, bro. You killed this man over a TV. Come on, OG. Come on, OG. Rest in peace, OG. Rest in peace, OG. And he just died in it. I right there with him. So I'm glad Myles reached out in that regard. Anyway, back to Myles Garrett, back to the Browns. Look, I'm excited. I hope we get a season. Some people are optimistic. Some people are not optimistic. I'm somewhere in between. I'm going to remain optimistic. But look, just like that 1994 strike with the Cleveland Indians, you may never get another tomorrow. So if you have Baker Mayfield under a controllable contract, you got Myles locked up, you got Nick Chubb, perhaps the best running back in the league, Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry. Come on, bro. Jarvis Landry. So this could be our season. So I'm going to remain optimistic. I'm going to remain really optimistic about this. Anyway, I kind of got into this story a little bit longer, took a few side tours. I hope you enjoyed the trip. It's just all interconnected. Sports is wrapped up in COVID, and COVID's wrapped up in riots, and riots are wrapped up in the 2020 election, and the 2020 election is wrapped up of the politics being pushed on you by the athletic world and ESPN, ABC, Disney. So this is a bombardment right now of frustrating crap. I mean, we want to see highlight reels, want to read box scores, look at stats, play fantasy football, fantasy baseball. This is why we tune into sports. This is what we love. But I'm telling you, every story from Bubba Wallace to Kaepernick on down the line, it's all politics, sports, current events, social issues, pandering, microaggressions, overreactions, underreactions. And I really look forward to the day that we can get back to sports. Lord willing, the NBA is going to start. Yes, I believe LeBron James has said and done some ridiculous, awful stuff. And I'm revisiting his alleged hate crime in Los Angeles. And honestly, it doesn't sound good, but I'm still going to root for him in the NBA championship. I think he's the greatest basketball player of all time. Pound for pound, all-around game. From rebound. I think he's perhaps one of the best passers. Top 5. I mean, his stats, just give him enough time. I think he's going to play till he's 50 years old. He can if he wants to. He'll play with his son. He'll come back to Cleveland. In my head, that's how the script plays out. I think he's one of the best passers the league has ever seen. He'll get his titles, provided he keeps playing. I think he's going to get plenty of titles. He's still the best player in the league. Among the top 5, top 10, at that point, it's like, no, this butternut rum flavor is the best. No, this pistachio is the best. Well, maybe they are both the best. And I say it with drummers. You reach a pyramid, you reach a top. And once a drummer, any musician, a vocalist, a piano player, a guitar player, a bass player, once you reach the upper echelons of talent, there really is no number one. You're just in the club. You open the door, you walk in. Oh, hey. You got Jimi Hendrix in the corner. You got, But anyway, just saying, when you get to become one of the best, I digress. Guys, look, I want to say cheers real quick. This is so darn good. So flavorful. This Weller Antique. Not a sponsor yet. But look, everything is wrapped up right now in this hybrid. We want to see box scores, highlight reel plays, champions, I want March Madness to come back. Just say, hey, at the end of the season, the top 4 ranked teams, we're going to put an asterisk next to this one. But you know what? You 4 were the best. Say you 8 were the best. Or you 2. I don't care. But if you're thinking because of COVID, you shouldn't do this, find me a healthier demographic of human beings than college-age Division I athletes in America. I'm talking the healthiest group in the history of groups. Talking the ability to test in the morning, the afternoon, and the evening. Crown a champ. Gotta crown a champ. You know, that's the stuff I want to see. Right now, it has been frustrating. It's been difficult. You know, we want to talk about the Browns. We want to talk about the Indians. We want to talk about the Cavs draft pick. We want to talk about NHL playoffs and NASCAR. Now, obviously, NASCAR is going, but what was the biggest story? It was Bubba Wallace. In what appears to be a massive overreaction by NASCAR and just our general tendency to jump to the worst possible conclusion without having facts. Like in the Mike Brown case. Hands up, don't shoot. It never happened. He didn't do that, and he didn't say that. But Colin Kaepernick used that as one of the major things that he took to push this agenda, to drive racial division. And I'm a firm believer of sports being something that unites us. Tell me if you've played football, since we're talking about the Browns, and since I have experience doing that, find me a team where you're not going to have an integrated relationship of races that leads to a bit of a brotherhood working together toward the same goal. That's the crap you want. That is exactly what you want. That's the life lesson that you're supposed to get. That is the experience you should be getting. It's the minimum expectation you should have for what sports can do to your soul, to your heart. There were players that were bussed in and players that transferred. And, we were a Division I school in high school, and we were 2 undefeated seasons. Played in the state championship. Just one of the best experiences of my life. But sports, yes, I know. We're supposed to hate the Steelers, the Squealers. I know. But we don't really hate them, do we? I mean, maybe Baltimore. But it's supposed to be a camaraderie, a brotherhood, a fellowship, a family, a tribe, if you will. I don't know if you can see my flag. You can, but not in that one. A tribe, a family of people. And I want sports to unite us. So that's why I'm going to ask if you have not taken a moment to invite your friends to join the Unhappy Hour Sports Show. It's a private group on Facebook. Please do so. Join it, and then just go through. Take 5 minutes, scroll through, and hit all your friends, the ones that are sports fans. And just invite them. And yeah, I know. Sometimes people have been getting triggered. It's an election season. They don't want to talk about certain issues on a sports page. Well, we're going to do it. Look, I'm not going to force stories about lava lamps into the sports page, because it has nothing to do with it. But when there's Bubba Wallace evolving story, yeah, the funny memes are going to get shown. The Trump tweets are going to get shown. The NASCAR tweets, the Don Lemon footage where, Bubba says, oh, it was a straight up noose. Yeah, okay. Just his instant reaction was say, yeah, I know that the federal agents, this is such an awful country. The federal agents, 15 of them showed up to investigate and found that it's just a rope tie for a garage door. But I'm going to discount all that because I need to divide America. We're going to talk about that because ESPN is going to push one slant. ESPN, ABC, Disney is going to give us a hard left slant. They've been doing it for 20 years. It's become unwatchable. I love sports. I go to sports to avoid a lot of this crap. I don't go here for the soap opera of it, but we will talk about it. But I say that to say, soon, young Padawan. Soon, young Padawan. Soon, Lord willing, we're going to be back to sports and mostly talking about sports and great plays of athletic achievement instead of all of this sideshow. So number one, please invite your friends if you have not taken the time to scroll through your friends list and invite them to the Unhappy Hour Sports Show, a support group. It's a private group on Facebook. Secondly, if you do not have one of these, you might want to consider doing so. This is the Unhappy Hour Sports Show. These are collector limited edition pins. There are only 100 of these that will ever be made. I have 18 that have gone out. Number 24 is reserved. So by the way, if you get one of these pins, how about picking one of your favorite athletes too? If we have 18 out and we're on number 19, I got to pull my list out and double check, but that's Bernie. No, not Sanders, not Bernie Bros. I'm talking about Bernie Kosar. But anyway, we made about 100 of these. We're never going to make another batch just like this. We will tweak designs and go to season 2 of the pin. There are minimum $25 donations. 100% of the funds raised from these will go to pay our graphic designer who created this awesome logo for us, which then later turned into a neon sign. It's just awesome. But this will all go to Ted Distel of Distel Design and all the projects he works on. If you're interested, leave a message, tag me, hit me up. Let me know. I'll mail it out tomorrow. Shoot a PayPal thing over. Minimum $25 donation. This is my PBS moment. So if you'd like to support the show, get a pin or two, make a donation. You can even go above and beyond the 25 if you wish. But that's another way to help the show. Share our content. You know, if you see that we've done a show on YouTube, share it to your friends. Invite your friends. All that jazz. All that jazz. Because look, I grew up outside of Cleveland. I love the Indians, the Cavs, the Browns, the Buckeyes. Now I'm trying to cover the Blue Jackets. We like golf. We like NASCAR, MMA, boxing, anything sports. If it's even tangentially sporting related or athletically related, we're going to be doing it. And we're a family here. So if you'd like to support us, hit me up. Let me know if you want a pin. Invite your friends to the private group. Subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/TheNewAmericanMedia for now. That's the flagship channel with music stuff, with current events stuff, with spiritual stuff, with esoteric stuff, with political stuff, and sports stuff. Starting a new page on YouTube. It's going to be sports only. It'll be all the Unhappy Hour. We're not going to do agree to disagree stuff. It won't be current events and politics. Any more so than the times that it invades our culture. Any more so than, look, if Donald Trump is talking about the Cleveland Indians or tweeting about the Indians, we're going to cover it. If Kayleigh McEnerney, is that her name? If the White House press secretary is getting asked about the Cleveland Indians, if she's responding, you know, like that's a number one news story of the day. Like that's top 3, top 5. When it's being discussed, a possible name change from the White House, cancel culture is being discussed, we're going to cover it. And here's the trick to enjoying the groups if you've been triggered lately. If you're annoyed with a post, you click the 3 dots and you can mute a post. You just go, all right, I get it. They're just arguing and now they're talking about tax rates and Ukraine and the hell, how did we end up on this side street, you know? You can mute a post. But the rest of us want to talk about it. You know, this is the absence of sports. We're going to talk about what gets talked about. And if the Browns are brought up, the Indians are brought up, we're going to talk about it. But we try to keep more of the current events and breaking news stuff over at the Agree to Disagree show. That's another private Facebook group. So invite your friends to that as well, because the culture war is happening. I'm a firm believer in more free speech, not less free speech. I think cancel culture needs to be canceled. I think most of us have kind of had it with the heavy-handed indoctrination of what sports media used to be and what it is today. It's just all the Scooby-Doo masks are coming off. That was the theme of the 2016 election when I covered it. It was in Cleveland, by the way. Quicken Loans Arena, Progressive Field. It was right there. Epicenter. Cleveland was it. You know, and the Cavs, the Indians were on full display. The NBA champion Cavaliers. So, anyway, we believe in a lot of we believe in having more conversations, not fewer conversations. We just ask that everybody keeps it mostly civil. So if you're down for that, if you like the cut of our jib, like I said, invite your friends, share our content, subscribe on all the platforms. If you're on YouTube, let an advertisement play. It's like tossing a penny in the wishing well, although they demonetize half our crap anyway. Okay, final question of the day. If you've made it this long, leave a comment. Other than Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, what other social media platforms do you think the New American Media and the Unhappy Hour should be on? I'm looking at Parler. I haven't decided. I'm good. I don't need TikTok. What would you like to see us on let me rephrase the question. That's getting wonky. Can you recommend another favorite social media site and let us know why you think we should have a presence there? Because putting up a video, an hour-long sports video and having it demonetized right off the bat, it's like, I know they're doing it to cripple my desire to create content. Because newsflash, if you weren't aware, Google YouTube. I don't know if they like people like me having a voice. I think that's why you are watching. Because you're tired of the crap that you're getting from the force-fed news outlets, right? The ESPNs, the NBCs, the CBSs. I feel as though we're an anti-ESPN, if that's a thing. So, you can support us if you wish. I think we're on Patreon, too. Haven't had any success over there. Haven't had a lot of success with some of these things. The shadow banning, the demonetization, the stuff that we've gone through. We've had people sign up on Patreon to donate, and we've never received it. I mean, we've tested. It's just any sort of censorship you could imagine has happened and is continuing to happen. But I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop talking about what I'm passionate about, and that's freedom, equality, liberty, the opportunity to advance your life. And let's face it, in the sports realm, I want to see Cleveland titles. I want to see the Browns win a championship. Smash that like button if you like that comment. Come on. This is the year the Cleveland Browns win a title. How about the Indians? Let's get one in Frankie Lindor's last year. Why not? Why not us? Why not? And I hope that that's the community that we've built over these years. You know, we have close to 2,000 members. I'd like to get it over 2,000 real quick in the Facebook group. Invite your friends. I think we're just 100 away. Or maybe 70 or something. I don't know. Who's counting? But I think the general public is hungry for a different kind of sports conversation. And yeah, we'll give you stories and we'll take you down other side roads. We'll bring it back to sports. But I think we're grown-ups. We should be allowed to have these conversations. If nobody's going too far out of line, deal with it. Have a conversation. Cancel culture is trash. That's not an argument. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. On The Simpsons, it's like Rod and Todd throws a stone. It clunks Homer in the head and he goes, "I got him, Daddy." God, that's a funny episode. Or a funny scene. I forget what episode it's from. Anyway, I digress. Signing out. So I want to say I appreciate you guys. I love you. And we'll talk again soon. Take care. Peace.